Well, hello. We're here again. This is you've made it to a video on the E3 Leadership and Training and Coaching um, Book of the Month Club. And this month we are working on the magic of thinking big. Anyway, so we've been kind of doing a couple weeks already of this. We're doing chapters 5 through 8 of the book, and I made some notes, so I may refer to those instead of the book itself. But anyways, thanks for checking it out. And my name is Kevin Furman. I'm your host, and we're going to be just talking things through, just kind of chapter by chapter, just ideas, things that popped out, things that have been helpful for me, and ideas that well may be helpful for someone out there. So again, welcome. Thanks for checking things out. So I'm going to dive right in. So Magic of Thinking Big is all about those principles of success that Dr. Schwartz put together way back when. And this book is a high classic, so it's worth reviewing many times. As usual, when I reread a book like this, I just go, "Man, I don't remember that in that book. How did that sneak in there?" So there were a couple of those, and there were also some things that I realized, wow, I've actually kind of adopted that, and I had forgotten where it came from. So let's dive in. Chapter 5. So chapter 5 is all about being creative, right? So how do you be creative? What does that mean? All that sort of thing. And he does a really good job of trying to explain like creativity is not just reserved for artists or engineers or people that actually create a thing. He's talking a lot more about using your mind in creative ways to come up with solutions for opportunities or challenges, or problems, however you want to think of them. Um, and so he talks about that, like what does that mean? So he kind of gets into like it's creative to figure out a way to stretch your budget if needed. How to fit in all the things you want to do on a trip that seemingly there's all these pieces, and like, well, how do you fit them all in? Thinking creatively about the time you use, which ones you do on what days. That can be a creative process. I am a musician by trade, and I do a lot of things in the arts and the sound arts. And a lot of times people have told me in the past, like, wow, I wish I was as creative as you are. And little do they know that I started out actually as in college. I was going to be a computer engineer, and I was just kind of going down that path, and it was going to be fine and all that. And I don't know, there was something about it right at the time. I don't have to get heavy in details, but I just knew that wasn't going to be fulfilling. It wasn't going to make me happy in my life. I could do it and I'll make money and all that, but just I didn't want to end up being some middle-aged guy all bitter because he didn't do what he wanted to do with his life. And so I switched over to music, and it wasn't like I'm going to be creative. It was just, no, I enjoy this is a good thing to do in life. This brings joy to people. Yeah, let's do this. This seems a lot more interesting, right? And I could never see an end to it. It was always an ongoing process of bettering myself and improving myself. And I thought, well, that's what I want. I want to just become a better person all the time. So let's do a career that kind of makes you do that just by the career. So anyway, if that's creativity, great. But it really was just survival at first. Like, wow, I'm right behind. I got to do this, right? So anyway, and that kind of leads into one of his first big points in the chapter. And he says, look, to be creative, to create something, you have to believe it first. You can't create something you don't believe in. You can't If you don't believe in something, it's not going to happen, right? So, um, it's just something to keep in mind. Like that's the first thing you want to do. And the second part, usually people think like, okay, well, I'll believe it, but then well, then what, right? So and they're trying to analyze it a little too much at the beginning, but it's understandable, totally understandable. Like, well, if I just believe it, it's not just going to show up because I believe it. True, right? You have to take action. The thing is, he talks about, well, there's an intermediate part in there, right? And that is once you firmly believe that you actually can do something or that you will do something, which is more powerful, your mind will actually create the way to do it. Your brain is like this multi-billion-dollar supercomputer, and if you allow it to work right and just work creatively, if you will, I'm trying to, like, I need to find a way, not I hope I find a way, I need to find a way. Your brain will actually kind of churn it out, right? What about this? What about this? What about this? And if you foster that thought, if you kind of lean into it, if you will, or use that to your advantage, it starts to spit out ideas even more frequently than just on that one idea or one thought, the one belief that you had. So he talks a lot about that, like that's kind of the process, and trust that that's how your brain's going to work, how life works out. And and all the people he studied, he said that's they believed it, and they found a way. Brain came up with a way, and then they took action and they went for it, right? And then we can talk about that step another time, and actually yeah, so we can talk about that part, the part of taking action and adjusting and going for the goal. That's another part of this part is really. Oh, look, we have a visitor.
Hi,
It's
Kevin.
Mel. Hey, Mel.
How you doing?
I'm great. I was just doing an introduction to chapter 5 of the book.
So you can go ahead. I'm joining you
Okay.
for half an hour.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see how long this takes me just kind of talking. So if you have some thoughts, jump right in. All right.
Okay.
So I was just talking about the first part of chapter 5, where he's talking about creativity and how to foster that. And that you have to believe things, and then you got to let your mind go to work and come up with solutions. So um, one of the ways that, for me, I've found that actually has worked, and I've forgotten, this is one of those things I forgot was in the book, was how can I do better? That's the question, right? Or another way to kind of think of it is there's always a better way. Even if I'm doing full out, this is going awesome, still believing there still is a better way to do it. Let me find that, right? Let's keep pushing the envelope. And that's something I've always tried to keep in mind. And it's paid off quite a bit in trying to, create things in my life and do things. And I've certainly have faltered and all that, but it has been a really big part of creativity. Is just, well, how can I do it better? And just that question alone will do that. And then later in the chapter, he talks about a statement that I had been telling people for years, and this is the second thing that I realized was from this book, and I'd forgotten. And this one is worth writing down. This one's actually worth really ruminating over, right? Really studying, and that is this: capacity is a state of mind. So that thought in and of itself, I've heard lots of reactions to it, but many people kind of take the right reaction, if you will, and they think, "Wow, I can actually do more than I think I can," which was his point in his book. Um, and then there's all what happens for a number of people also is they'll think, "Well, that's a great idea, but you just don't understand. I'm so busy. I have so much going on. It's not just that I think I can, I literally can't do more." And I always assert that, well, maybe you're thinking about it is what's keeping you stuck, not the actual things. So that's a really cool thought. And I try to live by that one. That one I have up on my computer, I have up on my wall somewhere, just to remind myself that I can handle what's coming. I can handle life. All the things that are getting thrown at me, it's a state of mind, whether or not I'm going to handle them. So it helps keep me positive. It helps remember that no matter all the things that are happening, and life is complex and full for everybody, that I'm going to be able to handle it. So it's been really helpful. Mel, what do you think about that?
Oh, I definitely agree. It's a matter of mindset.
Hmm.
If you stretch yourself, if you already think it's possible, it will be possible.
Yeah.
So I truthfully agree with that. We have all the capacity to stretch ourselves in order to accomplish the things that we definitely want to accomplish. It's a matter of mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Well said, Mal. So then he kind of finishes out about kind of like, well, how do you kind of get more out of life, if you will? And that's not exactly how he puts it, but he's talking about like, how do you be a person that kind of fosters creativity, and it's in that umbrella. And he talks about how when you're with people, do more listening than talking. If you want to learn about new things, and learn like how to create new things, or just how things work in general, listen more than you talk, right? Which always reminds me of the whole thing of, depending on your belief, right? God gave us one mouth and two ears. So that's a hint that we should listen twice as much as we talk. right? So that's always a good idea. And
I'm
another
liking
one that
this
I've
one.
picked up recently, very recently actually, is the acronym makes the word WAIT, right? WAIT, which is why am I talking? So that's a very good one to keep in front of your mind. And listening actually helps you learn more as opposed to talking, right? And the other thing is not only that, but encourage other people to talk. Like ask them questions. Like be curious about people. Find out what's going on for them. Don't assume you understand what they're saying. Right? Ask them questions, and just listen. Listen to the answer. Don't assume you know what the answer is going to be. You may or may not. But that the point is to encourage others to talk. Right? And then the last part of the chapter, and this is actually the longest one I've got notes on, but the last part he talks about, well, like, well, how do you foster this creativity, thing? And he says, basically, write your ideas down. When an idea pops into your head, write it down. Some people do that with post-it notes, right? Back of their hand, whatever, right? I tend to do it on my phone because I keep everything there. So I'll just pull up an app that I've got like a to-do list, and I just quickly jot it down, right? If I come up with an idea, it's just I jot it down and then I'll look at it that night or the next morning, and just see if it has merit at that point. But I just tend to jot things down that strike me as a good idea, and then go through them, right? Just go through them and just kind of go through the list of them. Some people make a filing folder. They have an idea and they pop it in the folder, and then every week they'll just kind of run through them and see if any of those ideas hit them as usable, and then they might see some they're like, nope, that is not a good idea, and they just get rid of it. All right, so he just says that's a good process, and just keep your mind active about ideas in general. So that is all about creativity, chapter 5. All right, Mel, you got anything you want to add to that whole thing?
Oh, no, you said it beautifully. We definitely need to take track of our thoughts, because this is where the ideas come from.
Hmm.
And then once we definitely review it, we'll be able to assess if it is something that we want to actually further, like look into it more and make something out of it, or leave it aside because it's not something that is feasible right now, or it doesn't talk to us at the time that we want to do something about it.
That's right. That is it right there. All right, so that's again, this is probably the most I'm going to say about one of these chapters this week, but there was a lot in there. There was a lot to mine out of that chapter. So Dave wrote a really cool one. This chapter 6, um, the main thrust of it, and I'm forgetting the title at the moment. Sorry, what is that title? Is it that
I
one?
think it's something around you are what you think
Yeah,
you
you
are,
are what you
something
think
like
you are. That's the one. Yeah, that's it. Okay, good. Thank you. So highlights again. So this one's a little bit quicker, but the big thing that I got out of that chapter this time around was just to keep forefront all the time, especially when there are challenges or things that pop up that you're, a little afraid to do or just you're not unsure about. And that is, and it sounds strange given what I just said, but I am important was sort of the kind of one of the big takeaways of just remember you're an important person, right? And everybody has value. All human beings have value, and part of the charge that I think we've been given with life is to find that how do we bring that value to others? How do we make life better by showing up with our value? Um, so just part of that is just remembering that you are important. So under the heading of you are what you think you are, right? So and he talks about this. If you think you're beaten down and you're a nobody, well, you're probably going to act like that, all right? And you're not going to get a whole lot of great results. And I know a lot of my childhood was spent kind of in that realm, actually, kind of a lot of that kind of thinking. And I can certainly look back and think, yeah, that did not produce a lot of great moments, a lot of happy, joyful moments, right? Thinking that way. And when I started to say, well, wait a minute, maybe I am important, that's when things started to shift a little bit, right? And as I've grown and matured and all that, the whole idea of like I have worth, I'm okay, right? And for me personally, it was kind of like I'm damaged, is what that thinking was from. And you're like, no, no, I'm not damaged. I'm me. Like that's how I am. My experiences were my experiences. Everybody has their own, and they're all equally important. So it helps to like just stay calm when you're meeting new people also, because you can think, hey, we're just two important people that happen to meet each other, as opposed to that person's better than me, right? So all that kind of stuff. And then, as the other way to kind of think about, like, we are what you think you are. So he brings in a couple of things. One is definitely you want to bring enthusiasm into what you're doing, right? So the only way you're really going to move the needle, if you will, on goals you have or things you got going on is bring enthusiasm, right? Don't just kind of, okay, here we are. Yeah, we're going to talk about a book today. It'll be great. Like, that's not going to go anywhere. Right? Like, hey, this is a very important chapter, and it is, right? So bringing that, and it looks different for different people. Not everybody's a big cheerleader and raw, like not like that. Some people are pretty reserved in the way they do it, but you can come through in their tone. It can come through in the rate of your speech. I tend to talk pretty fast, and I guess that sort of relates to enthusiasm for a lot of people. So, whatever it looks like, right? Try to foster it. Figure out what really fits for you and what's authentic for you as far as enthusiasm, and bring it, right? And that's going to help people look at you like an important person, because enthusiastic people are important in the world. The other thing he talked about is being positive, like just making positive statements, using positive words, especially about other people, was one of his main points. And I think that's really, really, really important to remember. Right. So it's super easy to gossip. It's super easy to complain about people that do something that you don't like or you don't agree with. And yeah, I guess there's space for that. But it really, again, it doesn't necessarily do a whole lot of good. It doesn't really create anything, if you will. But when you talk about people in positive words, and as much as you can, um, it helps the whole space of the environment, so to speak, or the conversation, just elevate and be more pleasant. And I think a lot of people are looking for, well, how do I make life pleasant? Great. Say positive things. It sounds really silly, like saying it so simply like that, but it really does make a difference. I've been in too many conversations where somebody will walk in the middle and just be dark cloud, and the whole thing just kind of crashes, and well, that was kind of a weird end, right? So too many of those happen. So I definitely work my way into saying positive things, especially about other people. Now, the quote that I want to bring up about this chapter, I think that was really cool, and I don't remember this at all the last few times I've read this book, and that is this: think more of yourself, and there is more of you. And that one, that took a couple takes for me to kind of sink in a little bit, right? And I think I've glossed over it in the past too much. And I took some time and said, well, what does he really mean by that, right? So if you think highly of yourself, this is one way to look at it. If you think highly of yourself, and I don't mean like arrogance, I don't mean I'm the best ever. That's not what I'm saying. Just that I'm an important person. I have a lot to bring to the table. Then you have a lot to bring to the table, right? And there's more of you to bring. You can share more because you're thinking of yourself as someone who is important. And that will help move whatever forward, whatever you're doing forward, and it'll help other people feel like they could contribute also. So it's really not about, being, oh, I'm the best ever and I'm going to tell everybody what's what. It's just saying, no, I got ideas, and I thought them through, and man, let me share one. I think this will be helpful, and just being willing to share. It's kind of along those lines. Hey Mel, I'm going to ask you again. So anything you want to say about any of that stuff?
Yes, everything you said was definitely point on. One thing I realized that on this chapter that came was, whenever we know that as human we have value. If we come here and we're living, that means we have value.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever society in the society, the value is something that we can ourselves identify. But I realized people don't take the time to find out what is it that they have
Mm.
that they can bring that is positive, because they let the outside world dictate what is of value, and what is of value for the outside world isn't necessarily what of value for themselves. So what's good is the possibility to also do a personal inventory of what we think that we can bring. And like you're saying, like enthusiasm is a very, very great attribute. And sometimes people don't realize how much value it have on it. And at other time, it's people that are great listener, or there's different things we can bring to the table And it is those things that we bring to the table that we should affirm on a daily, so we can get some type of strength, especially when we have doubt in our worth. Because I know, even we are always asking ourselves, are we okay? Are we doing our best? Is it valuable? And we have to, those inventories allows us to remind ourselves what we bring to the table, and then that we can contribute to. We have to remain positive, and like you're saying before, like the way we show ourselves is also the way we are treated.
Hmm.
So it's very good to always bring the positive out of everybody's around us, but we should also show the example, which means we should start by finding the positive in ourselves and bring that positivity up front every time we have encounters with other people, but every time we're also having small thoughts with ourselves.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. No. Wow. That's a mouthful. Nice job.
Thank you.
So yeah, and I really like the idea of the inventory, right? Take an inventory and kind of write them out. What am I good at, right? What are my strengths? There's nothing wrong with that, right? Again, as long as it doesn't tip over into the arrogance column, I think it's great to think about what you're good at. We spend too much time in our heads beating ourselves up about how we did things wrong or whatever, right? Most of us anyway. And we need to counteract that somehow. So the idea of taking inventory, and there's different ways to do that, right? You can get a coach and have them help you. You can sit down and ask your friends what they think about you. There's lots of ways to do it. Um, but I think that's really important, Mal. Nice point. Yeah, very, very good. All right. So let's move on to chapter 7 here. So this is all about your environment. Now, when I first read that title, I thought he was going to talk about, you know, clean up your desk, make your bed, those kinds of things. And he didn't. He didn't really say that as much as I thought he was going to. And that strikes me every time I read it. I think that's kind of what I'm setting myself up for, and that's not really where he goes. But he hints at it. But he's more talking about kind of an overall thought process about your environment. And his main point, just to make it quick, just basically says go first class. You can't really afford not to. And he definitely, right away he brings up, well, Dave, I can't afford to buy, the expensive shoes. I can only buy the cheap shoes. And in the book he actually talks about that. He says, well, maybe, but if you buy shoes that are twice as good, they'll last twice as long, they'll stay in style more, and they'll look better, and you'll feel better about it. So basically, he says, buy half as many things and pay twice as much, and you'll have a higher quality of life, and you'll feel better about what, in that instance, what you're wearing, even things that you're doing, right? Or, um, and you can certainly take everything he says way too far, but just as a general concept, right? Instead of going for what's the cheapest, look for value and save up for something that's going to last a lot longer. I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I'm taking a little out of context of the things he was talking about, but that's the overriding thought that he was throwing out was go first class. Cheapest isn't always best, right? Sometimes you have to because you just need something cheap. That's the point. But when you're talking about your environment, how you want to present yourself to the world, how you want your office to look, all that sort of thing. He says, hey, go first class. Make it worth something. Make a statement so that other people realize that you take yourself seriously, if you will, not in a bad way, but like you hold yourself in high esteem. And that's kind of what he's speaking to. Let's see, what was the next thing? What is that? I wrote a note. No, I don't know what it says. Oh, I remember now. He talks about people, like the friends you have, right? So people you talk to, people you take advice from. And that was one of the points. I just want to bring this one up. He said in there that negative advice, use it as a challenge to prove that you can do it. Use it as fuel to do it anyway. right? Instead of cowering and saying, "Oh, you're right, I guess I can't," right? Just if somebody challenges you on what you're trying to do, just just say, "Okay, pack a lunch, watch, I'm gonna go do it anyway," you know? And just, again, kind of thinking of it in terms of that's somebody's opinion, right? They can think that that's a bad idea, but if if you've done the research, if you're ready to go and you're full out in, just use negative comments as fuel. And so that was helpful, and it seems out of context as far as environment, but he's talking about the people you're with, like your environment as far as the social structure you have going on. And along those lines, and this is kind of the last thing that I was going to bring up, and Mel, you can certainly bring up anything on here you'd like, but with new friends, he talks about find new friends that are different from you in a different line of work, right? So to expand your understanding of how things go. And also, they have different viewpoints, right? So find somebody that has an opposite viewpoint of yours on a certain area in politics, religion, whatever, and find out. Again, kind of be curious, learn about it. Don't look at it as like a confrontational thing, but just as that's their experience, that's yours. Let's share, let's learn from each other, and have a broader sense of how humanity works, right? And then he did say, though, that you want to select friends so that you stay away from petty thinkers. So people that think small. He said you kind of want to avoid those kind of people. So yeah, you want to find people that don't think like you, but you also want to make sure you're being selective about those that are negative, petty thinkers. Because he made this point earlier in the chapter, actually, that you are judged by the company you keep, and birds of a feather do flock together. So if you're around petty thinkers all the time, they're more than likely going to bring you down to petty thinking rather than you elevating all of them. So it's best to surround yourself with people that kind of elevate the whole process for you. So avoid that. Anyway, those are the points that I pulled out. Mel, did you have anything in that chapter that?
No, you are actually dead on, because the chapter, to me, it was what you said about the bird of a feather flock together.
Mm-hmm.
And what came to mind also was a quote from Oprah Winfrey that says, "Surround yourself with people who uplifts you."
Mm-hmm.
And I agree, because if we are in the if we're thinking about the environment, so what we should aim for is where we see ourselves, where we desire to be. And in
Mm.
general, everybody wants to be in a situation where they feel comfortable, where they feel love,
Yeah.
where they feel like they have growth, because people like to be the best version of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do so, it's best to be surrounded by people who either have already accomplished the thing that you want to accomplish, or who are great triggers. And when I say
Mm.
triggers, it's the sense, and I love the fact that you took people who are actually trying to refrain you from growing and being the catalyst to make you show them that you actually can do it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. But I actually realize also there are people that are great at helping people becoming the best version of themselves. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's not because that they are, it's either like you were saying before, because they are coaches, but also there are people, it's just because they see the best in other people. They don't need to be the best at the field the person wants to be the best at, but they know how to stimulate, how to encourage. And this is one of the things that as us as people, we need to look for the best environment possible to help us be the best version of ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, it reminds me of a couple things. One is in Think and Grow Rich, another book. Sorry to bring this in, but he talks about a mastermind group, and that reminds me of that, right? Surrounding yourself
Mm-hmm.
with people that are kind of on the same page and like all looking for the same goal. That's one version of what you're saying. Another one is, yeah, just talk to friends that are going to uplift you. Talk to people that are going to be in your corner all the time, right? Um, so anyway, that's why friends like that are worth their weight way beyond gold, right? Because of what you said, Mel, and all of that. The other thing that this reminded me of was this is a I can't remember who said this originally. It's from a while ago, but something to remember about your environment, and that is in 5 years from now, you're going to be sort of the average of the five most successful people you hang out with and the five books that you read. in, you know, the five, kind of the books, the kind of books that you read, you'll be in kind of an average sum of that, and the five most successful people you hang out with. And that's always kind of stuck with me too. It has a lot to do with the environment. Like you want to keep feeding the environment so that you're elevating yourself. So always good advice there. Okay, let's move on to chapter 8. Woohoo, attitude. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, this is a good one. All right. So the biggest thing, and he didn't say this, but this anytime the word attitude comes up, it reminds me of your attitude determines your altitude. And it's cute and all that, but really, I've seen that happen so many times that people with a quote bad attitude seemingly always have excuses about why they can't do what they want to do or have what they want to have, and people with quote good attitudes tend to be moving towards it and are excited about the future. So I've always kind of wanted to be that. Again, varied results over time. I've certainly stumbled a few times myself, well, more than a few, but I've always, you know, like that's been one of the things I've tried to keep forefront is, hey, your attitude's gonna keep things moving. You know, life will reflect your attitude. So if you see good things coming, good things come. If you see bad things coming, bad things come. So, and then as far as the book is concerned, Dave brings up enthusiasm again. So apparently it's very important because he keeps bringing it up, right? So he even talks about as far as your attitude, bring enthusiasm. You know, find what it is about whatever you're doing that you really like and share that. Next big point he made, and it's kind of in the same way. He called it life it up. So when you're presenting something or when you're trying to put out an idea to somebody, you know, really kind of make it seem real, like dramatize it a bit. Almost talk about it in big terms as opposed to just just the facts, right? Try to make it a little bit more inviting for people to see what you're talking about. Um, and then the third thing about attitude is always broadcast good news. And I've since I was well, I can't say since I was probably 20 something, I remember thinking, why don't we have news channels that basically report good news? Because you turn on any news channel and it's almost everything is bad, except maybe one little cute, you know, save the puppy kind of part. But everything else is all of the stuff that, especially now, right? But I always thought, why can't there be a place where you can just hear good things that are going on? There's lots of good things going on. People helping each other, new nonprofits starting up, volunteering ideas, whatever, right? All kinds of things that you could report on. And unfortunately, you know, our culture has such that that doesn't work. I heard about a couple of times when people have tried to do that, and it never financially was viable. They just people wouldn't tune in, which is really unfortunate because I tune out the bad news. I haven't watched the news. I don't sit down to watch the news, and I haven't done that for decades. I really don't have time for all that negativity, to be blunt. And so, things that are super important. Um, I oh, Mel, you got to go. All right. Well, thanks, Mel, for stopping by, and we'll see you around next time. Great to have you.
Thank you again. It was a pleasure.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye. Take care. So, so yeah, the whole idea of, you know, like, wow, you know, I just say forget the news, right? I can find out what's going on. If something's super important, I will find it out. I will figure out what's happening. It'll pop up as a you know, something on my phone or whatever. And if it looks like I need to know what's going on, I'll check it out, right? But otherwise, I don't need the constant knowing who did what to whom that was bad all the time. It just really brings down the whole attitude of like my day. So not interested. So what you want to do to help with your attitude, there's a couple things you can just practice, right? So how do you practice having a good attitude instead of just telling yourself to have one? Well, one of the things he says is just appreciate others. Like really look for what is good about people, right? And you don't have to look for every single person everywhere, but just when you find someone that's doing something nice, tell them about it. Tell them that's really awesome. Thanks for doing that. That makes life so much better when you're smiling or whatever, right? And then another thing you can do that's really helpful with attitude that really fosters attitudes that are uplifted is when there's credit to be given, or you know, when somebody's trying to give you credit, it's a good idea to sort of give credit to those that helped you. and don't just take all the credit for something that happened, right? Give credit away as much as possible. Um, and then you know, the other thing is, that he didn't say this, but I tend to add into that, you know, if there's blame to be had for something that went wrong, just say, yep, I blew it. I didn't foresee all those things. It's really good for me to learn that. So next time I'm going to know to check XYZ. So for next time, I'm going to be more on board with foreseeing that. So, you know, kind of taking the blame from others and then giving credit to others, that tends to really make you see be seen as someone with just a great attitude about how things work with people. So, you know, and that is what this month is about, by the way, is just being effective with people, and that one right there, I think, really points to it. um yeah, and a lot of the things, I just want to, before I wrap up, I just want to say a lot of these chapters weren't necessarily like how to be effective with people, but without being effective with yourself, you're a people too, by the way. It's really difficult to help others and be effective with people. So it's, you know, it's kind of in the realm of, you know, being encouraging with yourself, which is another part of the series that we're going to do. That does kind of build up being effective with people, sort of a foundational piece. We'll get into that another month. The last thing he said about attitude in chapter 8 was just give more than what's expected of you. You know, someone wants X, give them X plus. And you know, the adage that's pretty popular these days is, under promise and over deliver. Right. So tell them you can do it in 3 days and do it in two. That's one example, right? Or I'm gonna have, you know, I'll bake you a dozen cookies and give them 13 or whatever, right? So just kind of do a little bit more than is expected, and not because you have to or it's some sort of, you know, burden, but you just do it because you just want to be nice, right? You just want to be nice to people. So anyway, those are the first part. Those are the 5 through 8 chapters of Magic of Thinking Big. I hope some of these thoughts have been, you know, kind of provoke some ideas for you, and maybe you can take some of them on and, you know, think about them and see how they apply to your life. If you need anything, or any questions, I can be reached at this. I have an email now that is going through the E3LC, .net actually is my new website, and so that email is kfurman, which is K, letter K, FUHRMAN at E3LC.net. So if you have any questions, or if you have questions about maybe some coaching ideas or some business consulting or even health coaching, I've got some things going on in those arenas. But just if you have a question about anything I said or just some thoughts you just want to share, great, please email me. Find me, find me and let me know what you think. Join us next week. We're going to be doing the rest of the book, which is 12 through whatever there is, or 9 through whatever. I think there's 13 chapters total, so it'll be like 9 through 13. So it'll be 5 chapters instead of 4 next week. And we'll do it then. So thanks a lot for stopping by, and we'll see you next time. Take care.